Welcome to Capitol Catch-Up, your deep dive into the latest happenings on Capitol Hill. I am Victor.
And I am Leanie. Today, we are unpacking a wide array of new legislative proposals, committee reports, and daily proceedings from the House of Representatives. Let us start with the official record from August 20th, 2026. The House focused on routine administrative business to kick off the session. They designated a speaker pro tempore, which is a temporary speaker to preside over the chamber, followed by the opening prayer and the approval of the previous day's journal.
That is right, Leanie. But while the start of the day was standard, there was a lot of actual business processed. Several committee bills were formally reported. These covered diverse topics, including natural resource management, federal funding authorization for the National Law Enforcement Museum, and legislation addressing anti-Semitism in educational institutions. Members also introduced a flurry of new bills before the House adjourned until August 24th, 2026.
One major focus in these new bills is the rapid expansion of the data center industry. We have two significant bills addressing this. First, there is House Bill 10,119, the Protecting Local Control of Data Centers Act. This bill is all about safeguarding the authority of state and local governments over land use, zoning, and permitting for data centers on non-federal land.
It is a big issue for local communities. The bill explicitly prohibits federal agencies from overriding these local regulatory powers. It even goes so far as to stop the federal government from conditioning federal funds on whether a state or locality is willing to give up its oversight. Essentially, it keeps municipal planning decisions in the hands of local residents rather than federal officials.
And to add to that transparency, we have House Bill 10,118, the No Data Center NDAs Act. This is incredibly interesting. It prohibits members of Congress from signing non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs, as a condition for accessing information about data center projects, specifically their planning, development, or resource consumption, like energy and water usage.
Exactly. It bars federal funds from being used to enforce these NDAs and tasks congressional ethics committees with oversight. The goal here is clear: to make sure lawmakers can freely share details about the environmental and infrastructure impacts of these massive data centers with the public.
Moving on to national security, House Bill 10,137 is the No Insider Trading on National Security Act of 2026. This bill targets potential exploitation of sensitive information. It mandates that the Department of Defense Inspector General investigate and report on allegations of insider trading within prediction and energy markets linked to Operation Epic Fury.
Yes, the bill requires a comprehensive assessment by January 1st, 2027. It must detail the nature and volume of these complaints, the professional status of those involved, and what accountability actions were taken. It is all about identifying operational risks and preventing personal financial gain from national security intelligence.
On the industrial side of defense, we also have House Bill 10,126, known as the Demand Act of 2026. This bill requires the Secretary of Defense to incorporate projected foreign military sales into major industrial planning, munitions production, and acquisition strategies. By aligning international demand with domestic needs, the bill aims to stabilize supply chains and expand our overall production capacity.
Now, let us talk about land and property rights. Representative Thompson introduced House Bill 10,135, titled the Not in My Barnyard Act. This bill places a federal restriction on the use of eminent domain on agricultural land. For our listeners who might not know, eminent domain is the power of the government to take private property for public use.
Under this bill, the government would be prohibited from seizing land that has been actively used for agricultural production, like farming, ranching, or forestry, within the last 5 years, if a feasible alternative for that public use exists. It does exclude small-scale operations with minimal annual revenue, and it will not affect eminent domain proceedings that are already underway.
Another land-related bill is House Bill 10,136, the Crosset Experimental Forest Act of 2026. This bill proposes transferring the Crosset Experimental Forest and its research facilities from the United States Department of Agriculture to the state of Arkansas. The state would have to manage it as a state forest, dedicated to research and education in partnership with the University of Arkansas system.
Arkansas would have to cover all administrative costs for this transfer. And the bill includes what is called a reversionary interest. This is a legal term meaning that if the state fails to uphold those research-focused land use requirements, ownership of the property goes right back to the federal government. This bill is currently under review by the House Committee on Natural Resources.
Let us shift to infrastructure and safety. House Bill 10,120 is the National Flood Impact Reduction and Resilience Act of 2026. It establishes a federal program to mitigate the rising costs of flooding. It mandates a coordinated effort led by the Army Corps of Engineers, alongside FEMA and NOAA, to improve flood data collection, set national resilience standards, and offer financial and technical aid to local governments. It also creates an advisory committee of academic, industry, and government experts.
On the transportation front, we have House Bill 10,123, the Stop Improper Licensing Act. This bill targets national security and safety by requiring the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration to audit state-issued, non-domiciled commercial driver's licenses. Specifically, it looks at states issuing commercial licenses to individuals who lack lawful presence in the United States or whose legal status has expired.
If errors are found, states must implement corrective measures. If they fail to address substantial noncompliance, they risk losing federal funding. It is a very strict oversight framework to ensure commercial licensing strictly adheres to federal immigration and safety laws.
Speaking of safety, House Bill 10,124 is the Mail Theft and Postal Key Crime Prevention Act of 2026. This is a bipartisan effort to combat organized mail theft and financial crimes. It requires a mail theft coordinator to be designated in every single judicial district to coordinate investigations between federal, state, and local agencies. It also requires the Attorney General to submit annual reports on these theft trends.
Additionally, it directs the United States Sentencing Commission to revise federal sentencing guidelines to ensure harsher penalties for crimes involving postal keys, large-scale fraud, and violence against postal workers. It shows how seriously lawmakers are taking the financial and emotional harm of organized postal crimes.
Let us talk about healthcare now. House Bill 10,134 is the Local Healthcare Protection Act of 2026. It aims to protect hospitals from losing access to the 340B drug discount program due to fluctuations in Medicaid funding, specifically cuts to Medicaid-related disproportionate share adjustment percentages. This exception would run through September 30, 2030.
The bill also mandates that the Comptroller General conduct a comprehensive study on how declining federal payments affect rural hospitals, looking at the availability of essential medical services and the causes of payment instability.
Meanwhile, to address the mental health workforce, we have Senate Bill 5365, introduced by Senator Booker, and its companion bill, House Bill 5733. Both are titled the Community Mental Wellness Worker Training Act. They authorize the Secretary of Health and Human Services to award grants to train and certify community mental wellness workers.
These workers would perform mental health screenings and offer culturally competent counseling for mild to moderate mental health or substance use disorders. The bills authorize $25 million annually and prioritize funding for medically underserved areas, high poverty regions, and communities facing major substance use challenges. It also includes malpractice protections and reporting requirements to Congress.
We also have House Bill 9641, the Essential Caregivers Act of 2026. This bill ensures that residents of nursing facilities, long-term care hospitals, inpatient rehabilitation facilities, and intermediate care facilities for individuals with intellectual disabilities maintain access to support during periods when regular visitation is suspended. It allows residents to designate up to 2 essential caregivers who are guaranteed in-person access, provided they follow safety protocols. It explicitly prohibits denying access for end-of-life care and sets a fast 3-day timeline for state agencies to investigate any access violations.
Finally, let us look at history and culture. House Bill 10,131 is the National Archives Protection Act, which prevents the closure of existing federal record centers, restricts public access limits, or renovations that require relocating records for more than 180 days. This is all about preserving public access to our nation's history.
And speaking of honoring history, House Bill 10,121 proposes installing a statue of American humanitarian and baseball legend Roberto Clemente of Puerto Rico in the Capitol or on its grounds. The bill highlights his athletic achievements and his tragic death, while delivering aid to earthquake victims in Nicaragua. It authorizes up to $500,000 from the Capital Preservation Fund for the statue, encouraging the consideration of diverse artists.
As we wrap up today, what should our listeners watch out for? Keep an eye on how the House Committee on Natural Resources handles the Crossett experimental forest transfer, and watch for further updates on the implementation of the National Flood Impact Reduction and Resilience Act as these agencies begin coordinating.
That is all for today's episode of Capital Catch-Up. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.